Assalamu alaikum. In this video, we will understand about the Clotho. What is the Clotho? And that is we will understand and how it can be anti-aging. Anti-aging. So how it is possible? Let's understand about that all things. So in this way, basically remember the Clotho is a protein which that is our gene will transcribe to translate that protein, and it is the basically is the it is basically bind with a different receptor lead to enhance their ability like the insulin like growth factor 1 which that increase the affinity of the insulin like growth factor 1 bind with the clotho. Even the insulin sensitivity will increase due to the clotho, and the basically clotho when bind with the insulin receptor, and in this way the insulin will bind easily. So remember that things. So the type 2 diabetes mellitus will be recovered, and that is why the clotho is supplement also present in the market. You can buy to enhance the function for the type 2 diabetes mellitus. On the other hand, the clotho also inhibit the insulin degranulation from the pancreas. In this way, the pancreas, beta cell of the pancreas will not release the insulin, and but the minor amount of the insulin will release, and that will enter into the blood. So less insulin is not working, but the insulin like growth factor, insulin receptor bind with the clotho. For example, clotho when bind, and when bind with clotho will lead to basically get the more sensitivity of the insulin, and even the less insulin are present in your blood give the more positive response. In this way the hyperinsulinemia is not working, and in this way your blood vessel will save, and that is why basically the insulin sensitivity will increase. So in this way the insulin work well wherever you want to spike the insulin, so you should not need to spike more. So in this way the insulin will bind with the receptor will lead to anabolism occur. This is the number one thing. In this way, this is the anti-aging, because the insulin sensitivity when increased, so the aging will decrease, because with the passage of time the insulin sensitivity will decrease, will lead to cause aging. This is the number one thing. And on the other hand, the Clotho will also trigger the FGF sensitivity more of the FGF receptor, FGF fibroblast growth factor receptor. So the FGF receptor, FGF 23, 21 and 19 receptor. So on the other hand, we will discuss in the later part. First we will discuss about how the immune cell responds. So the Clotho will bind with the cytokines, and in this way the when Clotho will bind with the cytokines to get the response quickly for the clearance of the pathogenicity. And on the other hand, it also triggers the immune system function well. So that is why Clotho is too much important for the normal and positive immune response. And in this, the Clotho can be extracellular, intracellular, or intrinsic within the basically within the plasma membrane. So it is three type: alpha, beta, and gamma. But we are just understanding and focusing on the alpha. So the alpha is too much important, and let's understand about the aging. So major mechanism how Clotho will inhibit the aging and live longer, increase the lifespan. So the Clotho is basically important protein which that bind with the nephron. So wherever the filtration will occur in the glomerulus, so enter the urine into the proximal convoluted tubule of the nephron and distal convoluted tubule of the nephron, and in this way the reabsorption required. So in this way whenever the Clotho will not occur, the deficiency of the Clotho will reabsorb the phosphate group, so the phosphate reabsorption, while the excretion of the calcium. So remember, so in this way the Clotho basically function, Clotho is important for increase the phosphate excretion due to the inhibition of the phosphate reuptake channel, and in this way the Clotho will help to sense the phosphate in the blood. So in this way the phosphate, if more in your blood, so the phosphate should be excreted. So that is why the Clotho will help to excrete phosphate. In the same time, also create the channel for uptake of the sodium with the calcium. So if calcium is too much important for your life, because the muscle contraction, your exocytosis, endocytosis, and a lot more things like deposition in the bones for formation, so the calcium more as compared to the phosphate. But remember, the calcium is too much important for muscle contraction. Phosphate also important for the increase of the phosphate is known as the hyperphosphatemia. This hyperphosphatemia in your blood will lead to cause many problems, because it will lead to cause hyperphosphatemia related aging can occur. So in this way, when rise the calcium, so the calcium is lead to hypercalcemia. But the calcium is not too much dangerous as compared to the phosphate, because the calcium will use in the muscle, calcium will deposit into the bone, but the rise of the phosphate, which that will lead to cause aging. But the study shows that the phosphate when rise, so the hyperphosphatemia will lead to cause aging related disease. So basically the phosphate is important for the ATP synthesis, but the too much ATP is not required, limited ATP is required. So that is why the NADPH also required the phosphate group, but the rise of the phosphate is not a good thing, because in your blood should be decrease the phosphate group, but remain in the cell, because the NADH remain in the cell while the ATP also remain in the cell. So that is why the phosphate rising will lead to cause many problems. So in this is the function of the Clotho. Basically, it is also trigger the it is basically phosphate reuptake will occur. Phosphate excretion due to the binding with the FGF23. FGF23 basically sends the phosphate hyperphosphatemia will lead to FGF23 progress, and FGF23 bind with the FGF23 receptor in the nephron, the proximal convoluted tubule and distal convoluted tubule, will lead to excretion and not absorption of that. So the FGF23 is important for the absorption of the phosphate, excretion of the phosphate, and in this way phosphate will be excreted. So remember, but the calcium in the same time will be absorbed and sodium will absorb. So reabsorption. So in this way the reabsorption will occur in the same time. So that is the main thing you should need to understand. And in this way the channel creation, which that will lead to reabsorption of the sodium and calcium, but excretion and not allow to reabsorption of the phosphate due to the FGF23 binding with the FGF23 receptor by a Clotho. So the Clotho will inhibit the reabsorption and excrete more phosphate. In this way the aging will be decreased, phosphate related aging like hyperphosphatemia. So I hope you make sense about that. If you like my video, please make sure to subscribe, like and share. See you in the next video for this. Bye. Allah Hafiz.